Good evening. Electronic cigarettes, are they safer than tobacco? Or they are a high-tech way to hook a new generation on a bad nicotine habit? E-cigarettes look high-tech, so it's easy to believe the hype that they are a safe alternative to smoking. And unfortunately, they are not. E-cigarettes are just another way of putting nicotine, a highly addictive drug, into your body.
I started February 4th, 2013.
I've been vaping for 3 years, 8 months.
Their path in life is different, but Chuck Meyer and Lisa Bell share one thing: their passion for electronic cigarettes and its effectiveness in their lives.
I've personally have gotten my brother, a handful of neighbors, and a lot of friends to quit smoking using electronic cigarettes.
All of the early stages of COPD that I was beginning to experience after 40 years of smoking they've vanished.
But what hasn't blown up in smoke is the controversy around them, especially its ingredients. E-cigarettes contain no tobacco. However, the device heats up a liquid that's infused with nicotine, releasing a vapor that's inhaled and exhaled.
Smoking is responsible for 400,000 deaths every year. There hasn't been a death associated with vaping, and there probably won't be.
Bell is a member of the Consumer Advocates for Smoke-Free Alternatives. The nonprofit organization made a charitable donation to a study earlier this year that looked at the chemicals inside e-cigarettes and its health risk. So here are the results of that study. According to Dr. Igor Burston, a clinical researcher at Drexel University, traces of diethylene glycol, which is associated with a host of chemicals, including antifreeze, remained based on a single sample of early technology. Burston stated that it didn't rise to the level of health concern.
If there are any health risks, they're not nearly as bad as it was in a cigarette, and I'm okay with that.
While some feel more research is needed on e-cigarettes, these two are optimistic all parties, businesses, communities, and even the government will come to the table and get what they feel is the truth out there. E-cigarettes can be good for you.
So it's two sides that may not ever meet, unfortunately.
Electronic cigarettes, known also as e-cigarettes, have contributed to global sales of smokeless tobacco products, including smokeless inhalers, to about $3 billion. How e-cigarettes work? E-cigarettes are battery-powered smoking devices often designed to look and feel like regular cigarettes.
Popularity of electronic cigarettes is growing fast. Sales have doubled annually for the last 4 years, and there are an estimated 7 million users across Europe. Some tobacco firms have also launched their own e-cigarettes. They forecast 10 billion in sales by 2017. It has been marketed as a cheaper alternative to tobacco and as a way of giving up, but even some non-smokers are starting to use it. The electronic cigarette has a light-emitting diode which makes the tip go red, and what appears to be smoke is actually water vapor, as there is no tobacco inside. When the smoker inhales, a built-in atomizer vaporizes a liquid in the cigarette's cartridge. The liquid contains solvents, flavorings, and sometimes even the addictive drug nicotine. The device is powered by a rechargeable battery, and a system of internal electric circuits controls the glowing tip. With a range of different aromas on offer, every taste seems to be catered for. But the jury is still out on the potential health risks linked, for example, to the cartridge solvents used. And since nicotine itself is addictive, a generation of new smokers could become dependent on the electronic cigarette.
All e-cigarettes work basically the same way. Inside, there is a battery, a heating element, and a cartridge that hold nicotine and other liquid and flavoring. E-cigarettes, are they safe? The nicotine inside cartridge is addictive. When you stop using it, you can get withdrawal symptoms, including feeling irritable, depressed, restless, and anxious. It can be dangerous for people with heart problems. It may also harm your arteries over time. It's exactly like regular cigarette. So far, some evidence suggests that e-cigarettes may be safer than regular cigarettes. The biggest danger from tobacco usually is the smoke, and e-cigarettes don't burn. Tests show that levels of dangerous chemical they give off are a fraction of what you would get from a real cigarette. But what's in them can vary. E-cigarettes may be less harmful than cigarettes. Electronic cigarettes, seen by many as a healthy alternative to tobacco smoking, can be harmful. What do we know about e-cigarettes? It contains toxic chemicals. Kids and teens can get them easily. No tax on e-cigarette. Comes in many flavors, attracting many kids lately. Can be used in many places because it's okay to the public the way they promoted it.
They look like cigarettes, feel like cigarettes, and smokers like 18-year-old Logan Gray will tell you it satisfies his craving not to touch a pack of Newports.
Newport tastes fresher.
I've never touched cigarettes since this.
This is an electronic cigarette invented in the 1960s.
Make the Camel 30-day test.
But its popularity didn't take off until a decade ago.
So it's growing in Toledo a lot quicker than anywhere else.
Now 4 million Americans depend on it. Even the one's top lawmakers in Ohio don't want to see use them.
Kid theoretically who's 7 or 8 can walk in and buy an e-cigarette today. So that's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Most stores will not sell an e-cigarette to anyone under 18. However, online, all you need is a credit card to purchase them. E-cigarettes heat a liquid nicotine solution, creating vapor that users inhale. The purpose, users get nicotine without the stuff that comes along with regular cigarettes. They're one word for Dan Doyle, who's been smoking since he was 12. Life-changing. Dan is 71. He purchased his first e-cigarette in May of this year.
I've started with the highest amount of nicotine in them. I'm down to the lowest amount now. I plan in another month to go down to no nicotine, and then sometime first part of the year, throw them away.
Some health professionals aren't convinced. We took a look inside the battery-powered device and found it's made up of water, alcohol, nicotine, of course, and a host of chemicals, including one that you may not have known was in it, diethylene glycol, a chemical used in antifreeze. But the health risks still remain a big question. In fact, the last known study by the Food and Drug Administration on e-cigarettes was in 2009. The agency found that there could be harmful chemicals in them. Plus, the FDA believes e-cigarettes could be addictive. Dr. Matt Roth with ProMedica agrees.
It's hiding behind some of the research, and some of the research isn't there.
Neither is the regulation. 40 attorneys generals, including Mike DeWine, want the FDA to regulate e-cigarettes. DeWine says e-cigarettes are viewed like a tobacco product to the FDA, even though they contain no tobacco. And because of this, there's no oversight from the FDA, DeWine says, to ensure they're safe.
The FDA is pretty slow in even responding. I think we need to light a fire under them. I know that members of Congress are talking about holding hearings on this issue.
While the jury is still out on e-cigarettes, Josh Harris, who owns the Smoke Revolt in Toledo, worries the battery-powered device is being demonized.
People enjoy this industry. It's something that's helping them achieve a goal, and at Smoke Revolt, we're just happy to be able to help people do that.
What are the pro and con of the e-cigarettes? E-cigarettes have triggered a fierce debate among health experts who share the same goal, reducing the disease and death caused by tobacco. But they disagree about whether e-cigarettes make the problem better or worse.
Cherry cola, pina colada, very berry. It sounds like candy, tastes like candy, but it's far from it. It's known as cigarette juice, flavors for electronic cigarettes.
We'll see down the road, but I think this can be a game changer for a lot of people that want to quit smoking.
But Jacqueline Kakis with the New Mexico Poison Center says those sweet smells and flavors are also attracting kids. The Poison Center went from just one report of nicotine poisoning from an e-cig in 2010 to 23 last year. And that number is expected to keep growing along with the popularity of the product.
We've already had 3 already for 2014.
Cigarette juice bottles can range from 5 milliliters to 50 with nicotine levels, sometimes the equivalent of multiple cigarettes.
Something to pay attention to when you're looking at safety are the caps. This one can just be opened easily. This one, you have to push down like a pill bottle to get it open.
Signs of nicotine poisoning include flushed skin, increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, nausea, vomiting.
Electronic cigarette store owner Jonathan Lomax says e-cigs aren't the problem. He blames a lack of common sense.
People that smoke, they leave their cigarettes out on the table, parents or something like that. Don't leave it out if there's some nicotine in it where your kid could pick it up and use the device.
Opponents say that because nicotine is addictive, e-cigarettes could be a gateway drug, leading non-smoker and kids to use tobacco. They are also worried that manufacturers with a huge advertising budgets and celebrity endorsement could make smoking popular again. That would roll back decades of progress in getting people to quit or never start smoking. Others look at possible benefits for smokers. Obviously, it would be best if smokers could quit completely. But in my opinion, there is not enough data to support that argument. Some compares replacing tobacco with e-cigarettes to heroin users switching to the painkillers methadone. The replacement may have its own risk, but it's still safer than the heroin itself. Some supporters believe that e-cigarettes could help people quit. Just like nicotine gum, research has not shown that yet. What parents should know: nicotine can affect brain development in children and teens. Some e-cigarettes have candy flavoring, which could make them appealing to kids. They don't leave a smell like tobacco, so it's harder for parents to know if their kids are vaping.
Kids are getting trapped into the use of nicotine through e-cigarettes.
I'm not sure how that looked.
This study is important because it confirms what we suspected, and that is that while e-cigarettes may be helpful for harm reduction for smoking adults, they're actually a harm creator for adolescents.
The study says that the use of e-cigarettes does not discourage but may actually encourage the use of typical cigarette use with adolescents. Dr. Scott Frank, an addiction specialist at University Hospital's Case Medical Center in Cleveland, calls both a nicotine delivery system.
It would be somewhat parallel to using a needle exchange program for heroin. And with e-cigarettes, it's a cleaner way to deliver nicotine, but you're still addicted to nicotine.
But local advocates think they're getting a bad rap.
You don't get the carcinogen.
You know, my father smoked a lot.
The chemicals.
And my mom quit when she was 50.
Secondhand smoke.
I'm done with it.
Zero tar.
It's been helping me.
Dean El-Jabali, owner of the Crave Cave in Toledo, says he's always been against selling to minors.
From day one, when we opened our business, we posted signage. Anybody under the age of 18, we will not serve them.
Dean says many times the way teens get their hands on e-cigarettes is through their parents. And he says in some cases he believes it's helping.
They cannot stop their kids from smoking. So now they would rather see their kids using a product that it's not harmful to them instead of going and buying a pack of smokes.
That's the importance of this study. It shows the fallacy of that approach.
Well, one of the big worries in the medical field right now is just how popular e-cigarettes are becoming, especially with young people. And popular could be an understatement. The battery-powered devices were a $2 billion industry last year and are on track to hit $5 billion this year.
And I would say on a weekly basis, things are increasing.
In fact, experts predict e-cigarettes could eventually overtake the tobacco industry, which generates $80 billion annually.
Here's what I don't love: a kiss that tastes like an ashtray. Blech.
What we're seeing is the outstanding marketing job that this industry is using.
That means no ash, no odor.
They're seeking to capture as many different markets of youth as they can.
Earlier this month, Ohio Governor John Kasich signed a bill to ban sales to those under 18 years old. Dr. Frank says this is just the first step at getting e-cigarettes out of the hands of minors.
There needs to be some monitoring of compliance to see whether, in fact, the retailers are going along with the ban.
So as a parent, and you care for your kids, you sit down with your kids and ask the question if they are using e-cigarettes or vaping, because it's important not to let them, or to try to help them not to start using that technique or that e-cigarettes.
A young child, and even a not so young child, may not necessarily be able to make the distinction between a parent who is using a smoke stick and one who's using or smoking tobacco. And it's important that a parent make that choice. If they're going to use it in the presence of a child, they're going to take the risk of, take it upon themselves and the responsibility of having to explain why they're using it. And maybe this is a parent who formerly used more tobacco and is trying hard to use less tobacco, and the child wants that and the parent wants that, and they explain to the child that this is a way for them to start to use less tobacco. So you have to obviously be dealing with a child that's of an age where they can start to understand that sort of a thing. Otherwise, you're just modeling a smoking behavior which could be confusing to a child. As far as whether the exhaled mist or the mist that's produced can affect the child negatively or cause any kind of illness or disease, it's the same answer we talked about with secondhand smoke. The answer is no. There's nothing in this vapor that's harmful to a child's respiratory tract, and just the same way it's not harmful to a bystander's respiratory tract who's an adult.
Last week, the largest major review of the research on e-cigs was published in the American Heart Association's Scientific Journal. In their research, the scientists found formaldehyde, propylene glycol, and lead amongst other well-known toxins in the vapor. It may not have tobacco in it, but the e-cigs are still delivering the same carcinogens that are known to cause chronic disease and cancer, and the secondhand vapor is emitting it as well.
Instead of chewing on pencils, some local students are now puffing electronic cigarettes in class. Kelly May is live tonight with where it's happening and how educators are now trying to stamp it out. Kelly?
Yeah, even though tobacco products are banned on school property, Fairmont High School says they've caught students smoking e-cigarettes in classrooms. It's happened in Huber Heights too, but it's difficult to catch. We talked to educators today about how they're addressing the problem.
E-cigarettes, that is a new problem because there's no odor.
Still, Fairmont High School Principal Dan Von Handorf says students have been caught smoking e-cigarettes in class twice.
It was a surprise. I mean, things like that, they just don't happen here at Fairmont High School.
E-cigarettes work by turning liquid nicotine into vapor. They're so new that the FDA doesn't have a full grasp on their health effects. Principal Von Handorf says that's why teens don't think they're harmful.
I think a big eye-opener for our students, they feel like e-cigarettes are a lot less of a problem. They think it's a lot healthier for them.
I think teens look at it that way, but anything that's addictive is addictive at any age.
Ohio law makes it illegal for anyone to have tobacco products on school property, even if you're 18. Fairmont is one of many local high schools starting to include tobacco-less e-cigarettes into their tobacco policies.
These are new things, and so we are reviewing our school policies, reviewing our handbook, and reviewing our education policies to try to help kids make good choices.
I don't think they should be doing that in school. I still think they should have the same, punishment as if it was just a regular cigarette.
Fairmont's principal tells me for a first offense, if you're caught with one of these, it's likely that you'll just have to attend a tobacco education class, but a second offense, you're looking at possible suspension.
This inhale and hand-to-mouth motion is what has addicted Carly Gay for 10 years. Problem is, now she's almost 5 months pregnant with her second child.
So I've tried to probably stop since I started smoking, and it is next to impossible.
Gay smoked the most potent of cigarettes, a pack a day. She knew her baby just could not handle that, so she tried e-cigarettes, which vaporizes chemicals to be inhaled, including nicotine. But Gay says at least with vaporizing, she can reduce how much nicotine goes in.
The doctors advise you that quitting cold turkey can cause a lot of stress on you, which therefore will cause a lot of stress on the baby. So it was much better to cut back as much as possible than to quit cold turkey.
Dr. Sheila Shutuni with Texas Health Dallas disagrees, saying stopping right away is best.
Just quitting does not hurt the baby.
In fact, she says stopping in the first 3 months is the most important.
I would tell them to give it up, just like with alcohol. I tell them to stop.
But Gay did smoke nicotine-infused e-cigarettes in her first trimester. She started with a higher dose of the chemical and then began to scale it back. Now,
She's nicotine-free and yet not missing out on that smoking sensation.
When you actually inhale it, you can feel a hit in your lungs, and that's what us smokers really like about smoking, is because we get that inhale, and it's strong and it feels good.
She can switch up flavors. There are dozens to choose from, and she still smokes a lot, taking up to 50 inhalations a day.
Now, what are you going to say to the people who see you and judge you immediately watching this?
I'll probably just advise them maybe they should do their research on it before they get judgmental, and it's a lot better than smoking a cigarette, that's for sure.
I would rather you do the e-cigarettes and have just the nicotine than the nicotine plus.
And here's why. Your average cigarette has about 4,000 chemicals in it. Of those, 60 of them can cause cancer. When it comes to the e-cigarette, though, there are only 4 chemicals in the e-cigarettes. That's if you include the nicotine. But the FDA says there hasn't been enough research on this. These documents say they don't know if it's safe.
Davis is 3 months pregnant, but she was told it's okay to keep vaping.
I was given the okay from my doctor.
If they can just stop completely, that's going to be the best alternative.
Dr. Mike Anderson of Executive Medicine of Texas looks at vaping as the lesser of two evils. E-cigarettes have nicotine, which can hurt a fetus.
That baby is getting all its nutrition through that placenta, and if those blood vessels are constricted, theoretically it could limit the blood flow to that developing child.
However, e-cigarettes don't have all the rest of the chemicals that cigarettes do.
So at least with the e-cigarettes, we're down to just nicotine.
It takes out all the chemicals that are carcinogens and cause cancer, and it takes out the tar, and it takes out all the pollutants that you're putting in your body.
Davis is now using a liquid mix that doesn't include any nicotine and says she'll likely vape throughout her pregnancy.
And if the craving's there, which it is every now and then, I'm gonna vape.
We are not dealing with smoke the way I define smoke, which is the gaseous residue released by the burning of a tobacco leaf or any other substance. There is no burning taking place. There is no combustion. There is no release of smoke particles, which is tars, residues, ashes, into the air. Therefore, how could any of that stuff wind up being impregnated into a fabric or a curtain or a rug or clothing? It can't. So yes, I'm familiar with the new information about third-hand smoke. I think it's important that we learn to recognize that that is a risk. I don't think that smoke stick in any way, shape, or form has something to do with that risk or could create that risk or contribute to that risk. Because, once again, despite the name smoke stick, and if we decide to define this as smoking, it doesn't create smoke using the definition that I created for us. You know, I don't actually know, I'm not familiar with data regarding the amount of smoke and carbon monoxide released into the atmosphere and whether that's contributing to greenhouse gases and global warming and all that sort of thing. what the parts that I just showed you of the smoke stick, in fact, here's the disposable parts that we just talked about. There's this plasticky, rubbery plastic plug that comes with a new cartridge. There's the cartridge housing itself, and there's the wrapper it came in, all of which are recyclable. And so if a person has the wherewithal or the sensibility to simply just stick it in their pocket until they get to a place where they can recycle it, then this is not going to contribute to the litter problem that smoking, that cigarette butts do. So obviously we have to train people to do that, but it's certainly, the opportunity is there to not create additional litter.
A growing number of middle and high schoolers report having tried e-cigs instead of cigarettes, and the number of teen users more than doubled to almost 2 million from 2011 to 2012. It's even more now in 2014, which is a concern given that 90% of lifetime nicotine addiction begins in the teen years. The e-cig industry seems to be intentionally targeting teens. They use cool marketing with colors and candy flavors. They sponsor youth-driven events like rock concerts, all the while claiming that they're harmless. Some teens in the studies didn't even know that it contains nicotine, even though they might be able to buy them. One of the big claims that came under fire was that e-cigs will help you quit, or at least smoke less. The scientists found in 5 population-based studies that those who use e-cigs to quit were actually significantly less likely to be successful, by about 30%.
What adults and smokers need to know: if you don't smoke, don't start vaping. There are no health benefits, but actually some risk. If you smoke and are trying to quit, you are better off with an FDA-approved method of quitting, like nicotine patch or gum, or even some of the medications available in the market. There is good evidence that they help. E-cigarettes may turn out to be an effective way to quit, but we don't have the proof yet. If they are not planning to quit, would it be healthier to switch from tobacco product to e-cigarettes? Maybe. Talk to your doctor about the risk and benefits, because remember, time waits for no one.